scrappy friends. I am doing a mixed media art journal page, so I hope you have a cup of something while you watch this, and I hope you enjoy. So right now I am using a traveler's notebook that is a watercolor traveler's notebook, and this is from Scrap and Wonder's Etsy shop. So this is Beth. She has an Etsy shop where she has a whole bunch of traveler's notebook inserts, and I am on her design team, and so I'm using this, and I really like using the traveler's notebook size for art journal pages because it just makes it really nice and easy to play, and it's not a very big space, so it really works well. And what you are seeing me do is just work this page. So I have added gesso to this already. And I just use a clear gesso, and I use the Prima version, and it's really nice and smooth. I like it that it doesn't have a lot of grit to it, even though I know that that's part of the part of what is nice. I like that the finish of it. I like that smooth finish. So I am going to be creating a galaxy art journal type of page, and so I'm just building on different layers, and the best way to accomplish this pretty much is what I found is to have a really nice wet page. I almost though wished that I didn't prime the page because I feel like it would have got into the paper a lot better just with the wet paper. But I wasn't sure how to best do it, so that's how I started off. And one thing that I wanted to try was to add this tissue paper because I wanted to have some different layers. So I did do some stuff on the background for that other one, and then I just left it. So I didn't do a whole lot. And because I didn't know how much was going to show up. So I didn't want to completely add too much stuff to that bottom, not knowing what was going to show up. I think I could have done a darker layer and it would have worked out really well. So I'm adding this tissue paper, and I'm just using some matte gel medium, and this is going to act like a glue. You could definitely use some other types of, I know Ranger has a multi-medium matte, which is pretty similar to this. This is the Vicky Boutin brand that I'm using. I wanted to try out some of her stuff just to see how I liked it. I mean, I don't know. It's pretty comparable to the Ranger stuff that I've used in the past. So because this acts like a glue, it's going to hold the tissue paper in. So you got to put a layer underneath the tissue paper and then a layer over top. Now, the thing that I'm not a big fan of is the fact that when you add this to your page, it makes everything really float around over top, so it doesn't really get in. So that was one of the things that I'm not sure I would do this again. I really like the effect that it gives to my galaxy, but I don't like how the watercolors, because I'm going to add watercolor and stuff on top. I think maybe if I had used more acrylic paint instead of watercolor, it might have turned out a little bit better, but you'll see as I get going. I did try to do it without adding any of the stuff on the top, but I just found that the water was ripping the tissue paper more than I would have liked. So that's why I just added it. And I have a paintbrush that I just use to add my gesso and all that kind of stuff. So this is the next day. I let it sit overnight, and it didn't have too much warping, surprisingly. So this paper really holds well to doing lots of different stuff, and I did a lot of stuff to it. I mean, obviously it did have a little bit, and so if it was in a big book, it might flatten a lot better, and I'm sure if I lay it and I put something on top of it, it would flatten out pretty good. So I'm pretty impressed with how well I added a lot of stuff. This is sped up quite a bit, obviously. So the key that I have found to doing the galaxy type spreads is to just layer, 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 and layer. And when you think you haven't added enough, add a little bit more. And it seems a little crazy and weird at first, but because you're just adding all this color and I feel like you just aren't sure until it's absolutely dry what it's going to really look like. And I actually wish that I had added maybe a couple more layers of the watercolors, and I think it would have turned out just maybe a little bit better. Or like I said, if I had used more of acrylic paints instead of just using the watercolor. But I really wanted to try out these watercolors. And when I was researching or watching different other people do different galaxies, paintings and art journaly things, there was a lot of variety of what people were using, but they weren't really using on tissue paper. So I think that was part of it. So because I use the gel medium, that really locks everything in underneath. And so it didn't really get into the tissue paper the way that maybe it would have if I had just had a regular paper. But the key is to keep it really wet. So I do use my my heat gun quite a bit in between each layer, and this layer I'm gonna add a whole bunch of circles, so you're not gonna see me put every single one on, but basically I'm just finding things that are circles and just drawing them on. And I just used my black. I have a Pilot pen that I like to use with the mixed media stuff. It works pretty well, and I use that. But I'm going to go back over this again, and I'm glad I did. And that black right there that I'm using is watercolor, but I'm going to add some of the Shimmer's Acrotones. That's that blue right there that I'm using. And I wanted to make sure that I added enough dark colors because I really want it to be pretty dark. I mean, I want it to look like a galaxy, but I wanted it to be pretty dark. And basically, the reason why I started putting the circles in is because I was thinking that I was going to add a dark color, black or blue, or a dark black, blue, purple color around the circles. So you only see the galaxy basically in the circles. And like I said, I just thought it needed more. So I'm adding more, and I'm using the Prima watercolors, and they're in tropical. And there's some really nice purples and blues, and I definitely use a lot of that. Here is some Dina Wakley blackberry paint. So I did eventually add some of that to it, and I think that's what gave it a really nice purpley color. I think I should have used a little bit more blue because it's mostly purples, and you don't see much of the blues in a lot of places once it kind of dried. But I mean, I absolutely love the way that it turned out. I just think it could have had a little bit more of a galaxy effect. And I think if I had did one more splatter of the paint. So this next step, and everything's all dry, I'm just taking some white, and this is the Acrotones, and I know it's pretty light. So it's going to be pretty translucent. And I knew that, and I kind of wanted this layer to be like that. And so I'm just adding some layers. Like I said, I think the key to this is to just add layers and layers. And when you think you haven't added enough, add a little bit more. And I wanted it to look more like some clouds and stuff. And I really actually like that. I wish I would have did that, what I did down at that bottom corner up near the top or something, a little bit more, so that it looked more like a Milky Way type of galaxy inside each of the little circles. And I also used some of the gold also to splatter, and that turned out really, really nicely. Like I said, I wish I would have added one more layer of the speckles with the white but with, I have some Dina Wakley white paint that I pull out later on. And this one was with a little bit of the wet paint, and so this kind of adds a different effect because it kind of mixes in with the other wet paint and it disperses out. So this is my next layer, and I'm going to use this texture, or it's a dazzler from Shimmers, and I'm going to use this around each of the circles because I really want there to be some kind of dimension around each of the circles a little bit. I mean, I didn't go too crazy, but I'm circling around and I'm using a pretty fine brush to just brush it on, and I'm kind of smoothing it out just a little bit, and I'm going to use my finger around the areas that aren't right near the circle, but I wanted to use my paintbrush right near the circle, and this takes quite a while. I mean, as you can tell, I'm only 11 minutes in, and I still have another like 10 minutes left. So this takes quite a while, and I'm sorry my head is in the way, but I mean, for the most part, that first little bit that you've seen is how I worked the rest of this spread around each of the planets. And I'm just using my finger with some of the dazzlers to just, actually, is that one a dazzler or is that one I think it's a dazzler. No, it's a pasties. So yeah, those are a pasties, and it's got like a little grit and tooth to it. So it's a little bit thicker than, and I added a little bit of the Dina Wakley paint, and I'm adding just a little bit of the gel medium to it just to thin it out just a bit. That is one tip that you can do with your paint if you want to just thin it out just a smidge. It'll kind of help, though you will have that feel of more of it being thicker and more like a glue. Then there's other mediums that will help thin out your paint as well, that are meant to just thin the paint out. So if you want it a lot thinner and more fluid, those take a lot longer to dry when you use with acrylic paint. So, but anyway, like I said, I'm mainly using the shimmers because I want there to be a little bit of a texture, because it is around, it's galaxy, and I want it to have some kind of feel of something extra. And this is really just my first base coat. I know that I'm gonna put more paint on top so that it really covers up that tissue paper. I don't want the tissue paper to show through in the background too much. I mean, you might, I don't think you can see it that much once I add that last layer. You do see it a little bit through this first layer. And I just added, like I said, just a little bit of that purple to give it, I really want each layer to have a little bit of a different color and a different feel, so that when it all comes together, you get this nice rich color, and it's not, I want there to be the different colors in there. That's really is what is going to help build on things. And I want it to feel like outer space. So it's not just going to be like a black, because that would just, I think it wouldn't feel real. Like when you look in the outer space and you look in the sky at night, it's not just black. It's like a blue black or a purple black, or there's other different colors. And so here's me just using my finger. It took a while to use the paintbrush right around. And so once I got that part done, I could just go in with my finger and just smooth it out. And I'm not trying to be perfect, but I am trying to stay pretty close around the part where I did the circles, so that the inside of those circles aren't filled with stuff. In this one, I added just a little bit of that blue And this is Shimmer's Acrotones, which has a little bit of a self primer in it. So this will help prime for the next layer too. And at this point, I'm pretty sure I'm done with the galaxy part. Though it looks pretty light, and it will darken up. It will look a lot darker once I get everything all done. So, but I do feel like it looks a little light right here. It could just be the way the light is during the day. And like I said, you can still see that zebra print through there, through the edges. But once I get done with it, you won't be able to see it. So this is my next layer. And I really wanted there to be something around the planets that made them stand out more. So after kind of thinking about it a little bit, I've decided to use some white paint, and I'm using a watercolor paintbrush because it'll add just a smidge bit of water to make it a little bit more fluid. But I'm using the Shimmer's Acrotones right now, and they're a little bit more transparent than a regular acrylic paint. And I am smudging it as I'm going so that I'm blending it in with the other stuff. I mean, it's sitting on top of the texture, or the the texture that I already have there. Um, but in the end, this is really going to help everything stand out, and it's going to kind of make it look more like light. It's hitting around each one, but it really makes them stand out. I think this is one of the best decisions that I made while I was making this, because I think if I hadn't done this, and I thought about using like a black, and maybe that would have worked, but I think it would have blended in too much once I added that next layer. I don't think you would have been able to see it as much. So this was, and like I said, smudging it helped just it feel more like like the halos around stuff. So it wasn't so harsh. Though I will go back and I will add some more of this so that I can get a little bit more dimension and stuff, but I won't add a harsh line around the whole thing. So like I said, I just did lots of layers when I did this, and I think that was the key to getting this to turn out really nicely, is to add layers and to just build on what I did next. And even though it seemed like it was a lot, and this took a while, this took a good amount of time to do, especially with the drying time and sitting, letting it dry and just kind of figuring out what I wanted to do next and stuff. But in the end, it was really, really worth it because this turned out so amazing. It looks so good. And there are a few things that I ended up doing after. Like I ended up taking my white Signo Uniball pen and adding some stars myself, just to make it look like there were stars blinking around. And I also, and I'll explain it when I start doing the black part. So now I'm gonna start mixing some acrylic paint, and I'm using this navy Aquatones. And I'm also going to, I think I mixed a little bit of purple, and I'm using that Studio Calico Color Theory blue paint. I'm not sure what color blue it is, but it is a really nice deep, like it's a really nice blue. And then I'm just adding a little bit of watercolor, the watercolor that you add the water so it's concentrated. And I just added a little bit of that black to it just so that it ends up being, it has a little bit of a black tint to it, but it's mostly blue and purple. And I really love this color. It really does the trick. And I'm glad I did this this is mostly acrylic paint. It just works out really well. And I'm using a paintbrush that has like a chisel end. I'm not even sure what size it is. I'm not really a painter, so I will not apologize for that, but I will just say that I could not give a lot of information on what paintbrushes are better to use, except for just kind of, I find that you just have to play around and find what paintbrushes feel good while you're doing the project that you're doing. So I thought a chisel would be able to get me close around the these circles without really covering up too much. And I don't mind if it goes over the white a little bit though. So this is the next step. And as you can see, I kind of started it because this process took a long time too. So this is me adding more white, and I'm using the Dina Wakley white paint now. And I'm also adding a little bit of blue in with the white, so it's more of a darker, it's a lighter color, but it's not just white. So this is also going to help give it a little bit more of a dimension. And I'm adding some aquatones in there too, because like I said, that's a little bit more translucent. This time I'm not using the water brush pen. I'm just using that chisel pen that I was using, so that I can get right up in there and get some lines, and if I want to put some lines in. And I also, down at the bottom, you can see, because I've started playing around with it because I wasn't sure exactly how I wanted to do it, but I decided that I wanted to do the white first and then go in and use some purple, or it's not some purple, to go in and use some gold, because I wanted to add some gold, like some sunlight gold. And I'm using both, the Pentel has a gold, or they have metallic pens, and it's the Sicily roller pen. And they have gold and copper, and they have a silver, and it's just like a gel pen, but it works really well on media. It doesn't like clog up or get funky when you put it on media. So and because it's a more of a jelly roll ballpoint pen, you can get some smudging going on. The thing that I found with it is that by itself it was a lot more yellow than I was wanting. So I almost probably could have used the copper, and that would have been a better color. But so I mix in with it some of the Faber-Castell, has some gold texture lost, and I mixed in that with it and blended them together, and those two together really looked really nice. You got more of a glittery look, a glittery metallic look, and not just this yellow gold look, because that's not the color that I was looking for. And in places that I felt like I messed up, I would just line it up with some of that blue white paint and just really work at it. So I'm just going to go around in areas that I think would be in one direction. So I'm kind of trying to hit some of the same places. And I do add some extra white that I don't, just in splotches where I want there to be a harsher line. But I'm also going to, after this, and this isn't, I don't do this on camera because I don't know why I didn't think to press record again, but I used the Sakura glaze pen, which is a white, but it takes a little while to get the white. So I used that and I kind of smudged it, but then I also just did some lines in certain places with the glaze pen, and that gave more of a harsher line. And then I'm also going to, after that, I'm around the edges of the page and around some of the circles, I'm gonna add the Sakura glitter. It's a clear glitter. It's like transparent and it's glitter. And I smudged it, and that really, I think that did the trick, because it really it gives us this sparkle look. So you see all the sparkles, and because I use my finger to just kind of blend it in around the edges of parts of the circles, and then on the edges of the paper, it really just kind of helps it look like it's outer space. Um, so definitely when you do something like this, doing those special little touches like adding the glitter pen and the gold pens and the gold stuff, that is really just going to help it like pop out a little bit better and make it look more real. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys go and check out Beth's store. She has a lot of traveler's notebooks and some mixed media type notebooks for the travelers in all different sizes. And I mean, this kind of stuff is super fun to do in that size. It makes it look a lot more real and just easier to do. And it feels like just easier to do. So don't forget to look out for that. Don't forget to check out the links below to where you can find me. And you can see the stuff that I'm working on while I'm working on it. I'll see you guys later, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.